Yo, good morning. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I said Thanksgiving earlier in the other interview. I don't know what I was thinking, but happy St. Patty's Day. I'm wearing my Ireland rugby jersey today because I don't want to get pinched. but yeah, thank you for joining, everyone. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, well, just to introduce myself, if you're new to this program, my name is Eric Velasquez. I am interviewing the candidates for the San Antonio city elections for 2021. And early voting starts April 19th and ends April 27th. And there we go. You have to get registered to vote ASAP. If not, you won't be able to be registered to vote, or you won't be able to vote here in the upcoming election. So, please do so, and let's get to know more about our candidates. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and join Mr. Raymond. What's going on, man?
Hey, not much. What about you, Eric?
Good. Anybody on Instagram or anybody else on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, if you want to ask a question, please do so in the comment box. If you would like to actually jump into the conversation, please do. Please keep it civil and clean and everything like that. So let's make sure this is done really well. This is a open forum, so I want to make sure that everybody has a say in everything, but also an open forum for you, Raymond, to be able to speak about your platform and be able to tell us more about what your thoughts on a lot of things. So let's go ahead and get it started. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Hello, guys. I'm Raymond Guzman. I was born and raised in San Antonio. Went from Lackland Elementary School all the way to John Jay, and took some classes at Palo Alto. I graduated from Texas A&M Kingsville. I majored in mathematics, minor in English. I'm a mathematician. I've worked as a teacher. I worked as an oil field worker. Different jobs, both white and blue collar jobs. And I'm here running for City Council District 4, hoping to make a difference. So.
Yeah, definitely. I love your background, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's like...
Curtis says, I do stand by the fact that I do think David. Who's David? Who's David? I'm confused. Are you talking about Raymond or David? I'm confused. I don't know who David is. But yeah, so let's jump into it. I'm gonna start off on a fun fact. Oh, I keep getting calls. Sorry. So let's say what are your top 3 small business restaurants in District 4?
Okay. My favorite Mexican restaurant was Capadres. It's right across the street from John Jay. Okay. Unfortunately, they've been closed the whole year due to the pandemic. But right down the street from them, a couple of buildings down, is El Tequila, a Mexican restaurant, and they've just been knocking it out of the park. Really? During the snowstorm, they were open, they were working. It's a new ownership, and they just been kicking up a notch, and tacos that are stuffed, and there's good service, good food. And I want to talk about a restaurant outside the district. I want to talk about Big Lou's, because it's a family-owned business, I believe, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I remember going there in high school, and it was a house. It was a small house. But you go there now, it's this giant building. And that's kind of the inspiration to like these small business owners. Like, hey, like even if you saw the house, you could build it up. And you go there, like it's a 3-hour wait to get a table. So
yeah.
It may not be in the district, but I thought it's worth a note for people wanting to start a business. Like, go for it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Any other ones? Some people have had a list. They're like, oh, I got a list, but
I got a list, but unfortunately, District 4 has a lack of businesses, especially restaurants. So that's one thing that we need to bring in and build up is the restaurants.
So. Right. And that was one of the questions that I had for some of the other candidates is why why there isn't a TERS in District 4, you know?
And that's a good question. I mean, District 4 is the face of San Antonio to a lot of people because of Lackland Air Force Base. We get people from all around the world coming every day of the year, and they come and they have to go outside the district to eat at restaurants and to buy stuff, to go shopping, not necessarily for groceries, but if they want to shop for clothes or something like that, they go outside the district. The GIs, you know, they leave the base and they take the bus or they rent a car and go outside the district. And that's something we really need to build up is our restaurants and this short stores for people to come and shop.
A lot of military folks are looking to places to eat too. So I mean,
yeah. Oh, like right here at the entrance, the back gate of Lackland Air Force Base, off of Valley High, these restaurants are crazy. McDonald's and, you know, churches, they get business like you would not believe. They're opening a tire shop right there by the post office. And there was talk that there was Chick-fil-A and people were so excited. And it's just like, oh, finally something different. But it turned out to be a tire shop. There was a lot of disappointment in that. So.
I mean, we need tires too, but
we need tires too. But like people want food,
right?
Yeah. But like that goes to one of my ideals is getting food truck zones and farmer market zones. There's a lot of empty lots. Right. So these empty lots that are been vacant for years, like they might be owned, but they have not been developed or just sat there being an eyesore for decades, for 20, 15, 16, maybe 20 years, and it just sits there empty. I mean, if we buy up, put a parking lot and have a food truck zone, the GIs will love it, the locals will love it, or even walking tracks. Like there's a lot of elderlies that want to walk and whatnot, and they might not feel comfortable on the roads, or we don't have sidewalks in that area. So we could take these areas and make walking tracks or food truck zones. The possibilities are really endless.
Right. And let's talk about all of that during the pandemic, right? Everything was shutting down, but so many people started their own little businesses, right? Especially food trucks, you know, food trucks or food vendors. It kind of blew up, you know. So yeah, like let's start helping these small businesses. And obviously I'm not saying the city needs to do all these things. I'm just saying release some of these red tapes that are blocking some of these people from doing these things, you know.
I mean, the red tapes and the zoning is a big issue too. Like I'm a small business owner and I was looking at zonings, and some of the zoning areas are crazy. Some are understandable, but some you need to relax. Like, okay, we could open these lots up for food or open these lots up for other stuff, and okay, we can sell alcohol here, and relax on the zoning and open some of these areas up for small businesses to thrive or at least start.
Right, definitely. And I'm gonna, because I also want this to be a little bit fun, but what are some of your favorite movies?
I'm actually a big fan of the Marvel movies, but also like kind of like grindy B-house, like grindhouse movies and like kung fu movies, you know. Just, you know, the Hong Kong media, like the Hong Kong movies. Yeah, like they have a lot less red tapes to jump through, and the actors are really willing to do a lot more. Like that's where Jackie Chan got his start.
Oh, and Jet
Li and the actions scenes, full contact, and they actually jump out the buildings, and you could tell a big difference. It's not jumping, like it's not jump cuts all over the place. It's a solid shoot, and it's pretty good, and it shows how dedicated they are to take hits. And
subtitles or no subtitles?
They both have their benefits. I like dubs. I like when you the dubs, no subtitles, because sometimes they change the script and it's a lot funnier. Other times, you know, like if you just want to get into it and like figure out what's actually going on, subs the way you go.
Right.
But if you just want to have a good time, and if they really rush the translation, it could be pretty funny and it could be entertaining. So that's always good to watch.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get back on to topic. I was like, you know what? Let me ask some different questions, dude. I was like, I like keeping it a
No,
little bit
I could
light.
talk about movies all day.
There you go.
That's like,
okay. So what would be your first item of business if you know that you would like to accomplish if you do get elected into office?
I have a long list, but one of the things that we have to get on top of is a homeless crisis. So, like right now, the homeless crisis is out of control, and we have to cut back some of the regulations that this city council had put on the police. Like before the pandemic, the police could not remove someone for trespassing if they were homeless. And in District 4, off of Marbach, this became a large problem. Off of Marbach, off of Military, off of 90, they were in droves. They were taking out buildings. They were behind churches. They were behind everywhere. And we really have to address the problem of the homeless. And we need to work with community to do this. There's a lot of homeless programs out there that the city ignore. The fact that they gave over $150,000 to a company in San Francisco to get information on how to deal with the homeless program is dirty and disappointing. And the fact that they did not let the cops help the homeless or deal with it, ignoring them is not a solution. It's really unsympathetic. So we need to make an organization and really contact these churches and these programs. And we need to make a database on finding out who these homeless people are. Are they sex trafficked? Are they homeless? Are they missing people? Are they mentally ill? And really get down to what is causing this problem and what these people need. If they're veterans, let's get them up and let's get them with a veteran program, and let's get the base to do something about it too. It's just we can't leave our veterans out there. So we need to make this program in the first 90 days. We need to go to these places and really push people to come on the board. Like, hey, you have this program, your church have these donations, and let's get together and we can talk about, because some churches get like 50-pound bags of rice and beans for the food pantry, and they can't really divvy up. Well, some of the homeless shelters get, small cans. So it's like, hey, let's make trays, and, maybe the women's shelter got men's clothes. Okay, let's give that to a shelter that needs clothes. And we really have to spread it out. Like the Haven for Hope, it might have been a good idea, but it kind of fell through. When you have such a dense area of people trying to start out and not a lot of opportunities, that's the problem. Like they're all competing for the same jobs, and then they have to go further and further out, causing more time on their part, causing them to spend more money on transit system and some money that they don't have. So having a facility like Haven for Hope will be a good start out point for people, but we cannot keep them there. And really having them, it's kind of like the jail system. You don't want to pay the jails for keeping beds full. That kind of defeats the purpose, and that doesn't really rehabilitate them. That just makes the prison want to have more beds full. So right. The homeless problem is kind of the same thing. We can't pay you this to keep a bed full. That's it. Just because a company is nonprofit doesn't mean that they're taking money. Like if you could start a nonprofit and pay yourself, it doesn't mean that people aren't getting paid. So you gotta be really careful of where you put your money and how they divvy it up.
Right. And what we've seen with the Haven for Hope, it's been a lot of issues where they have to split up the people that are married, and a lot of people don't want to do that, and all these different things, that there's a lot of hurdles that are preventing people from wanting to even be in that place.
Yeah.
So definitely we need to do something different, because it's definitely not working, especially just to have it there specifically in District 1. It's still not addressing the other issues. And When it seems like that we're just throwing money at the situation. Oh, let's just clear these encampments out. But what what are we doing? you
Yeah,
know?
that's exactly it. We're throwing money at the problem and it's not addressing the issue. So, like, we have to meet with these people and say, what's wrong? What's going on? Why are you here? And some people want to live that way. And hey, if you want to live that way, cool, but you can't do that here. You can't do that in this person's backyard. There's places where you could do that. Some people like that Roman lifestyle, that free man lifestyle. If that's what they want to do, go for it. Good for them. But they can't be panhandling in certain spots, and they can't be camping behind locations. There's got to be there has to be certain areas for them to do that.
But see, that's the problem though, is that there are people that are trying to do stuff like that, but people in the neighborhood and the areas, they don't want that, right? And there's not too many places in the city that people can just go and live in the by themselves if they want to go, if they
Yeah,
want to do
but
that,
like
right?
that's yeah, like if you want to do that, there's things you gotta do before you could do that. Like you gotta buy land, or you gotta be a co-op or something like that. You can't just live in the person's backyard.
Right.
But like those people, like you gotta say like, hey, cool, you want to do this, but you gotta do it somewhere else. Like we
Yeah.
really need to address the homeless people that need help, that has mental health problems, or that are out or on bad luck because they can't find a job. Like the ones that are really truly needing help and not doing it for a lifestyle.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
if it's drugs, like okay, we need to get you clean or something. If you don't want to get clean, hey, that's your right, but you can't be panhandling, you can't be doing drugs out on the street, you can't be doing this stuff.
Mhm.
You know, and that seems kind of harsh, but I've been to areas like Louisville and Los Angeles where they let them get away with that, and it is absolutely horrifying. Like the way that the city is, that let them get away with it. It's just like, hey, we want to help you. If you want help, take it. We'll offer it. If you don't want help, you need to move along. And I hope that doesn't come off too harsh, but we want to help them.
Yeah, well, and I think it's how they're helping, right? And
Yeah.
how they're doing all these things, and it's not being very conducive with it's like you have to do it this way or not, you know what I mean? And so I think that's where a lot of people are like, well, you know why would I want that if you're just giving me ultimatums? So I think we need to
Well,
be a
yeah.
little bit more compassionate with some of these issues, and that's
Yeah.
where I think a lot of people are not being compassionate with.
Yeah.
um you
See, like
know
that's why like these programs, like they need outreach, and it's kind of on the programs, like, hey, here's like, let's get you off the street, let's get you in a shelter, let's help you with your resume and all this other stuff. Like that's what I want. But you can only lead a horse to water.
mhm. Yeah.
Like we can only lay out for them, and we need to put this money towards where they're being helped.
Mhm. Yeah. And Chris, they offer help angrily. Yeah, you have the police come, and it is pretty intimidating too if you think about it. You look at the last sweep that they did
Yeah.
over
Well, like
137.
I'm not talking about the police going there and taking it. Like
Mhm.
these programs, like go up there and talk to them, take the picture, take the information. Like, who are you? Like, what's going on? Like, how can we help you? Like, what's the problem? Are you in trouble? Like, uh, I'm probably coming off more aggressive, but like, it's really gotta be a soft-handed approach. Like,
Yeah.
who are like? We need to know who they are and help them, like
Mhm.
the individual, not as groups, but the individuals need help themselves.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I was just saying that that's what is happening, right? So
Yeah,
we're seeing a lot of these, it's police officers coming in and clearing out. And they're like, oh, we offered them help. It's like, well, it's not really the best approach, right? Like you're saying,
yeah,
it's not the soft handed. It's like, hey, we offered you help, you don't want it, okay, move on. So yeah, definitely we need to change that perspective, and that the way everything's being handled. But um So what are some of the issues that you feel that are not being addressed in your district? Like, so just a couple of things that maybe aren't being, addressed.
Well, of course, we need to update our infrastructure, our roads, our sidewalks, add speed bumps, update the utilities and the internet. Internet's a big one. A lot of people are still using very slow internet, and nowadays we use internet for work, for school, and everything. And a lot of these places are, especially the most of the needed students that need it, are falling behind because they lack the internet. We also need areas for the students to grow and learn stuff on their own. I want to add maker zones. So maker zones are like places where they could build stuff with their hands and eventually get, certified and different stuff, maybe welding and other stuff like that. But a lot of these kids want to build stuff for themselves. Like a lot of them are into cosplay. Let's have some sewing machines. Let's have some stuff where they could design clothes and whatnot. Let's get some soldering irons. Let's get some power tools. Let them build a box. A lot of these students are interested in engineering and STEM programs and working with their hands. They just don't have the facilities at home.
Right. So it's not always about college or military,
Yeah.
A lot of these things, like me, I did not want to go to college. I knew that for a fact, and I think a lot of people are like that. They don't want to. And if you look at a lot of the people that do go to college, a lot of them aren't doing the job that they got their degree in. Or they don't know what they want to do.
Yeah, and that's a big problem. We kind of railroad our students through high school and say you have to go to college, and it's just like, well, a lot of my friends that went to college are making less money than my friends that got a welding job or went into construction or went into AC repair. Like they're making a lot more money if they're not in debt. You could get a lot of money from being a truck driver, and you could still go to school while you're doing these jobs, but you can make a lot more money on the start, like starting off. And that's a big problem. These maker zones will really help the students get an idea of what they want to do and really build up these skills. Because I had a friend who was an engineer, and she was very smart. She was around airplanes all her life and had a pilot license and whatnot. And after she graduated from university, she got hired from this airplane company, and she made this design that had rivets in it. And it was just like, oh, we can't do that because the rivets, the gun faces this area, so it'd be impossible. Just because you know how something works doesn't mean you know how to do something. She knows how rivets work, but unless you're out there and actually doing it, to say, okay, well, there's these limitations because of these angles and these tight spaces, and we got to figure out stuff. And that's one of the things that I want to really get the kids on is helping them learn and helping them get stuff done with their hands and improving the infrastructure. We also got to attract businesses to our area. District 4 is a lot of houses. So we have houses and small restaurants and small zones that are kind of out of the way. And we really bring more stuff to the district to bring in more money and keep money in the district and in the city.
Yeah, definitely. So what would be your plan to bridge that gap between city council and the citizens itself, to where you are being a little bit more engaged and things like that? What does that look like to you?
To me, that first of all, the city council job is a full-time job, and the city council members that aren't taking it, that are just showing up on Wednesday and letting their staff take care of it, that's kind of how we lost connection from our city council into our districts. So it's a full-time job. So you gotta be out there and you gotta be reading these bills and doing research and figuring out what's going on. And you have to be transparent to people in your district. So you have to have open forums, outside city council to meet with the residents and understand what they want. Online forums and meet in different places to have that discussion and tell them what's going on and what's coming up and and really figure out what they need, because things could change from, week to week and month to month. Something might come up, like one place might have, really bad water main break, or there's other stuff that we don't see. So we really have to be out there and be open to this and use work it as a full-time job. So like you gotta make sacrifice if you have kids or a relationship. Just like any other job, you gotta balance it out. But this one, you really have to push to get the citizens involved, and you gotta do different platforms to get them involved. Some aren't willing to speak online. Some want to go up there and talk to you. Others want to call you on the phone. And you really have to be out there and getting that done. And that's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to be out here online speaking to you. I'm willing to go places and speak to groups. And I'm willing to take phone calls, in the office, and really seeing what we could do as councilmen to help you. Because without that, that's one of the biggest problems a lot of people have right now with our councilmen is lack of communication. I hear endless number of people saying they email them, they call them, they haven't got replies. They went to the office, waited for hours, from as soon as they opened till they closed, and never saw the congressman. And it's just disappointing. We're here to represent the people, and given sometimes we can't see you, but we have to be open to seeing you, and sometimes go out of our way to go and actually interact with the public.
Right. Yeah. And I think, things like this, and thank you for coming on, by the way.
Oh, no problem.
It's things like this that I always, I think of it myself, because I ran last year for office as well. And I never turned down the opportunity to be able to go and talk to somebody, right? Whether it be from a podcast or whatever it is. But what I've noticed is a lot of people tend to say, well, they always just look at, well, how many people do you have following? Oh, you don't have credentials or all this stuff. But at the end of the day, you are still a constituent, right?
Yeah.
People that you talk to. So if you're not willing to talk to people, then then there's something wrong with it. Just because they don't have a big following, or they're not a major news media. You know what I mean?
And it also goes back to donations too. So a lot of these Congress city council members, they're more willing to talk to someone who donated the maximum amount of the allowed for donations, or they're willing to talk to someone because they are more wealthy. And that defeats the point. So right now, I'm not taking donations at all. So if y'all visit my website, you can see I'm just not taking donations. Everything, I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. And I'm working for your vote and not for the money. So whether you have nothing to donate or you could donate the full amount, it doesn't matter. I'm willing to work for both of you. And right now, it's not the time to ask for donations anyways, with the winter storm and the pandemic. So why not start, taking money out of politics? And who's best to start than yourself? So,
right.
If I'm not willing to do this, then why would I expect other people to do this? So if I'm not willing to put my money where my mouth is, then I shouldn't expect other people to do that. But I am. I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm here to work for your vote and not for your donations.
Yeah. And that is a big issue that I've always fought for as well, is that why are we spending so much money on campaigns, right? Why can't we start doing a different approach to it? Yes, everybody's like, oh, campaigns are expensive, but why? Why should they be, right? Because we have to buy all these signs.
The signs are, it's just okay, it's your face, and okay, we see you again, and afterwards, just leave it there to rot. It's just a waste of money. I got trifles printed up, I got cards, and I walk, and I talk to people, and I'm really pushing it. But these signs, they're expensive. Those big signs, they're expensive.
At least $150 a pop.
At least. And it's just, well, that could have been used for something else. Like, and like that money, like I kind of feel bad to say, well, you gave me $150 for a sign that, okay, like that could have been donated to the food bank, or that could have been donated to the homeless shelter, and that could have been put towards something else. Like,
which you can do for any candidates watching. You can use your campaign money to donate to local nonprofits, things like that. And I did ask, because I asked the TEC, Texas Ethics Commission, and they said that you can do that. It was a little bit to a shock to them because people don't do that. But yeah, I mean, you can do that.
Well, what a big problem is, these campaigns, they start nonprofits, and then they usually pay themselves out of the nonprofit. It's like, oh, I took this time out of my day and I should be making this much, or, you know, they're using my name, so I'm have this. So if you, it's dirty. Like, you're getting money to run for office. Well, like the office job should be paid. So be very careful with these nonprofits, like especially if it's someone's name. Like, okay, it's under my name to run for office. Like, they really need to be clear where they're spending the money.
Right.
Like, okay, well, I'm getting paid so much. It's just like, well, you're running for office. Like, should you being paid to run for office? Like, should you be paying yourself? Like, that's not right.
Yeah, definitely. And so let's see here. So have you ever heard of ranked choice voting?
Yes, I have, and I believe they do it in Australia or the UK. I don't remember. I think it's Australia where they do it mainly.
Right. Yeah, Australia is the big one. And basically, for anybody watching, the way it works is you basically, it's the same way we vote now, as far as you go in and you, oh, hold on, sorry, my internet. You go in and vote, right? Just one time. And so what happens is everybody still has to have the candidate who wins has to have the 50+1 percentage to win, right? 51%. So what happens is that if on the first round, if no candidate, which sometimes, a lot of times, if there's a lot of candidates in that race, you know, there isn't going to be a majority winner usually. So then nobody will get that. And what will happen is that'll induce a runoff election. The runoff elections here in Bexar County cost us taxpayers $8 to $10 million every time we have a runoff election. So that's a lot of money going to these elections that don't get a high turnout to begin with for the runoff elections already. And then also volunteer time and all this stuff, right? So you have that. But with this, if nobody is a clear winner, then it goes into a round 2. And keep in mind, you're not voting 1, 2, 3, 4 times. You're just voting the one time, and it's an automatic process that happens. And if your first candidate of choice does not win, then or gets knocked out, then your second person that you voted for gets those votes tallied up for them, and then so on and so forth until it's a clear winner. And with ranked choice voting, it creates a better picture of how people are voting, and the better picture for them to say, this is who I want to vote for specifically, instead of just having just 2 specific candidates, which it tends to act that way in our system. So ranked choice voting is a different process, and it's brand new to the U.S. So is this something that you would like to see something happen like that in here? Or
it's a good possibility. We need to kind of educate the voters on local politicians, and this will benefit those who are more educated on the who they're voting for. But that would be a good solution to not having runoffs. Like, I would be up for it, but we really have to push like voters to more inform themselves on who they're voting for, and this will be a good solution on, you know, candidates kind of working with each other. Like, hey, you know, if I'm a good choice, but, you know, consider so and so as well, or
Right.
But that might also split the vote a little bit more. So there's it could get kind of complicated, but it's a good solution to not having a runoff. Yeah.
Right, definitely. And it would create more opportunity for people to vote the way they want to vote, instead of, because ranked choice voting actually prevents splitting the vote, and it also prevents from having that spoiler effect, right? Because you always have these people that are like, well, this person has name recognition, which shouldn't be even a thing, right? But a lot of people have name recognitions, and that's all they look for, instead of actually looking at what their policies are. So I mean, that's something that this usually would help and change, fix that. Again, it is a new process for the U.S. in general, and not even talked about here in Texas. So just wanted to bring that into the conversation, because I think it's important to be able to think of different things.
Yeah, it's a good solution. It's something that we might have to test out on a couple of smaller elections and really get people trying out. We need some test runs and make sure it's going, and we might have to update some of the voting systems to make sure they could do it. So we have to make sure that the voting systems could do it and they're updated. But it's a good solution to not having runoffs. So.
Right, exactly. So what are some things that you feel, as far as with the police department, and I mean, obviously the big talk right now is the arbitrations, and also with the repealing of 174 that people are petitioning for. So what is your position on with the SAPD? Do you think there needs to be some changes fixed with the way they reprimand people, or what are your thoughts on that?
So SAPD does a good job for the number of cops that they have. They're very, very understaffed. And I want to get a substation in District 4 for the police, but they are understaffed, and that will be kind of an uphill battle. We do need the safety in our neighborhoods for more patrols. But there's small things that we can do to improve the police force. First of all, we cannot defund them. That's been tried in several places, and the crime rate shoots up. So defunding them is not the answer. How you want to use that funds, we can argue that some of the equipment, as long as they get all the equipment to keep them safe and protect and serve this and serve the people of San Antonio, like, let's get some body cams and make sure they have their vests, the bulletproof vests, and make sure everything's up to date and in good conditions. But some of the things that we can change is dealing with the officers' mental health. And I don't hear this talked about a lot. It's a stressful job, and you're dealing with the public, and you're out there. So changes in their daily lives can affect them. So we need a system for them to get, daily checks, like, hey, how are you doing? How things are at home? Are you in a good mood? And if they're in a good mood, a lot of times bad things happen because they're overworked, they're stressed, and just like any jobs, people make mistakes. So not pushing too much overtime is a good solution, and having different superiors check on them. Maybe keep a daily log and that they turn in, like, hey, how are you all starting off your shift? Like, how's everything? And because people make mistakes when their stress levels are high, like, and that's where anger starts and stuff like that starts. But
I think there's that argument of, being a police officer, you can't be making mistakes like that, right? Especially when you could put other people's lives in danger.
Exactly. So, I mean, like that's why we need to make sure that they're not overworked, overtired, that they're starting off the day right. Like, hey, you didn't, like, if they get up and they just have an argument with their spouse, it's just like, hey, cool down, take a couple of minutes, let's get this under have a little bit more mental health for the officers.
Right.
Because
I think that's a really good point because yeah, you're right. I think out of all the candidates that I've interviewed, there's only maybe like two that have actually stated something about mental health. So that's a really good point. I also think though is that a lot of the police officers aren't going to admit that they're going through some things because of a stigma, right? The same thing with the military. We never talked about mental health because you didn't want to be listed at that person, right? That guy or that girl that, oh, they're going through some mental illness, so there's a stigma behind that. So maybe we need to try to remove that stigma,
Yes, and like the first step of removing that stigma is working with it. It's just like, hey, you're upset. It's okay, you're upset. You have an argument with your spouse or whatnot, and just do hey, take a 5-10 minute break, like clear your mind. You just got off of a stressful call. Like they deal with stressful calls all the time with home this very disturbing things, and it's just like, hey, what you saw was disturbing. Yes, what you deal with was a stressful situation. Take a minute, gather yourself, make sure you're okay. And they're people just like you and me. I mean, people forget that they don't think that they think they're just a job. They're people just like you and I. They deal with feelings, they deal with other stuff, and mental health is a big thing. And having people help them with their mental health and having people on the force to go out with them to deal with other people with mental health is a big issue. And improving their work environment, we'll see that in the community. They'll be a little bit better in the community. And we also have to deal with how they reprimand people. I mean, if there's a bad apple, there's a bad apple. And no one hates a bad cop more than a good cop. And, but there's that brotherhood. It's just like you come after one of us, you come after all of us. But, we got to deal with them like, hey, if he's doing something bad, he's not one of you. He doesn't represent you. If he's going out, if he's taking a perp and being the crap out of them, because that's just a dirty perp, that's not right. And there's stuff that we could talk about, but there's stuff that we may not like that's in their handbook, and we have to discuss it and not really attack the officers for doing it. If that's their training and we don't like it, okay, like, hey, we need to change that. That's attacking the officer for doing their training kind of brings down the morale. And we really have to improve the morale in the officers. We want them to do the job and love it. And saying, hey, guys, we're changing this. We used to teach y'all hold down prep this way. Let's take some drills classes. Let's get them in more training. As a teacher, we go through training all the time. It's just like, we already know this from the classroom, but it's good for that review. It's to say, okay, well, that's a good point. And officers maybe once every 2 weeks, or they have to meet a minimum quota of training. Like, hey, we got this new class, you need to take it. At the end of your shift, you could come and sit in a seminar and just different stuff like that, and improving the training and really pushing how to deal with citizens. So like we could training like and they could get bonuses or small things like, hey, we're gonna feed y'all, we got some pizza, come for a training, and this small stuff to make it more enjoyable plays. I mean, people may think that's outrageous, but if that was your job, you're like, hey, like, cool pizza, and but I have to sit through this stuff. Like, all right, but we really have to get it done.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, I mean, there's a lot of heat, a lot of heat coming on to that, and I do see that San Antonio, they like their police department. There's obviously a lot of issues sometimes with people in minority and stuff like that might come across some issues of possible extremism or something like that. Maybe when they get pulled over, it gets a little excessive.
Yes.
So I mean,
it's just like one of those things where we gotta let the officers have recordings, and let's back it up, and that's a whole system we gotta build up. And if the officers want to wear get glasses that record the stops, or have a GoPro on them for extra protection for themselves, we should encourage that.
Yeah,
because people could say something happens and that tarnishes the officer, and
right.
it's you versus them, and it's become this whole argument, and we really need clarity on what happens out there.
Yeah.
And overall, I think this will help the officers, and this will keep the citizens safe. And if you do face stuff like that, keep track. Go, like I remember my father when I was first driving. Like, what you do when you get pulled over? You leave your hands on steering wheel, and you get your license out, your registrations out, and this, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Some people, like I heard people just yelling at the officer, why you pulled me over, and that ramps them up. That makes them defensive. It's just like, why are they angry? It's also how interactions, like, if I got pulled over, I get angry too. It's just like, what did I do? Like, come on, maybe I was speeding, maybe I didn't use a turn signal or something. But you gotta keep calm. You gotta use your mind and really go with it. And if things don't go in your favor, report it, go through it.
Yeah, well, and I think there's a lot of issue because there's not a lot of whole accountability, right? So people are upset because, well, yeah, they may report some of these things, and I mean, you've seen recently with some of these issues where people are being killed or shot and things like that, and there's no accountability, and so people are frustrated and upset as well, so we really need to look at those aspects. And if I get pulled over, which it happens rarely, but
yeah
I record on my phone, and I actually have a shortcut on my phone where I just say I got pulled over, and it starts recording, and it'll send a text message to my wife and things like that, my location, because I want to make sure I'm okay. I got pulled over at 1 o'clock in the morning. Nobody was on the street. I was putting out yard signs for my campaign, and for justice of the peace, and I get pulled over by a cop, and he said because I didn't use my blinker, and I'm like, there's nobody on the highway. I did use my blinker, and you had your brights on.
yeah
But it's just stuff like that I want to be careful, and I think a lot of people want to be careful as well, because they don't know what could happen. If a cop has
yes
a bad day and starts,
yes but like that's one thing that we need to deal with, is the cops aren't the bad guys. And like they may feel like it, like sometimes when you get pulled over, but they're ultimately there to keep things in order. They're looking for things. And like San Antonio has we're a part of like the trail for human trafficking. And we have a lot of old ladies that's been missing lately. For the last couple of years, like these older ladies have been, one left the flea market, one was leaving HEB, her work, and they just disappear, and we can't find them. And we had that phone call for the guy. He was in the back of an 18-wheeler, and they couldn't find him, and there was people dying. And they as far as I know, they never found them. But like they do a very stressful job, and keeping them accountable is important, and record them and do all this stuff, and you have the right to record them. But going in a situation with fear is really never good. You could be on edge, and you could be hyper aware, but like there's this, like you and me, like doing their job to say, hey, what are you doing? You didn't turn. Like you said, it was 1 a.m. He might have thought you were drunk. Like, hey, this guy took a turn out of nowhere, or something like that. So bad cops are a thing, but we can't just assume they're doing something for bad reason. So I'm all for holding them accountable, and we need transparency. We need transparency in the government, and we need transparency of the police force. And if someone does something bad, they need to be held accountable for it.
Definitely. Um, so with property taxes being such a big issue, what are some things that you would like to see done from a city council, position? Obviously, I know you can't change anything with the with BCAD, but what are some things that you would like to see done that maybe you can do?
We can't change the appraisal system, and the houses have been overappraised in San Antonio for years. One thing that we can do is increase the homestead exemption. And right now it's only $5,000. And that sounds like a lot, but that's taking off the value of your house. So if your house value is $150,000, taking off $5,000 doesn't lower your taxes at all.
And then they raise your property value too.
And they raise your property value, yes. So getting that to a point that will actually help the people that qualify for that is a big issue. So I want to double it at least, but if we could get it up to 50,000, that would be awesome. That would make a difference. But really working on the homestead exemption and really pushing it and get other members on the board, because those who qualify it really need it. This will be elderly over 65. This will be disabled vets. This will be disabled people, disabled vets and their spouses. So, and it's only on one property. So pushing this really will help those who need it. We can't do much about anyone else. We might be able to add some tax exemptions for solar panels and other stuff like that, but that's just more drama right there. But really the homestead exemption, we really need to get 10 times higher, double it at least.
Yeah, definitely. And just for anybody watching, the website to protest your taxes is bcad.org. You should be getting a appraisal soon in the mail. And you can definitely make sure you please protest your taxes every single year. Do not go a year without protesting your taxes. It's a very simple process as far as, saying that you do not want to, you don't agree with the pricing. You send it, they'll send you a offer, and then you reject that one as well, and then you'll go in for a formal interview. So that one takes a little bit more time just because you have to go to a meeting and a hearing, and it's a little intimidating if you haven't been to one before, but just think of it like you're going for a car sales. that's what it feels like. So just go in there and just let them know what's wrong with your home, and things like that. So definitely do that every single year, so that way your home you don't get priced out of your home. That's an issue that we're having a lot with some of these districts and stuff, that they're getting priced out of their homes, and they are getting gerrymandered.
It's outrageous how overpriced, how they evaluate it. It's just some of these houses, haven't been updated since they were built, and they're being saying, "Oh, this is a $300,000 house, a $300,000 house." Mm-hmm. And it's just like, come on, like the people live there since they built it. Like they cannot pay taxes on a house that much. It's just something we need to address. That's something that is higher up. We can't really address that, but the homestead exemption is something our city council can address and very well should address.
Definitely. And all they do is they just look at pictures from Google Photos and look and see outside your home and above and see if you've installed a pool or something. And that's all they do. They don't look at, what's wrong with the inside of your home or the things that you need to do and what holes are in your house. I told there's a hole in the siding of my house, so I have to fix it.
Oh, and that's a lot of things that people didn't understand when we had the froze. It's just like, all right, like we're built for the heat. Like we were not ready for this. And I had people online, wear wool socks and this and that. It's just like, I have nothing made from wool.
Right.
Like I don't know anyone, in this 5 mile radius has anything from wool except for the animals. So it's just like we were not prepared. And a lot of these houses are on concrete, and it's just bad old insulation, and it was just a nightmare. So
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. Well, is there anything else that you want to kind of to say about your campaign before we close up?
I just want to talk about more transparency. We need to deal with CPS and SALs, especially CPS after what happened during the last winter storm. We need to hold them accountable. We need to hold leadership accountable. The average worker did a good job out there trying to get the power lines back on and really going above and beyond. But the leadership, it's obvious we need a change of leadership at CPS. SALs, we need to hold them accountable for what happened there. We need to update, get new generators, backup generators for SALs for if the power goes down. We really need to renegotiate contracts with our utility companies and really hold them accountable for what's going on. Like, it's city owned, so it was just really all the information that's coming out. They didn't have a meteorologist. It was a college student. They weren't ready. They didn't have backup plans. That was just lack of leadership. You need to hold people accountable for what happens, and the fact that their leadership has nothing, has not been penalized in any ways, whether that was deduction or being fired. It's something we need to address. Like, people died because of their lack of action, and that's very serious. And it was a freak storm, but we had weeks notice. We had 2 weeks notice. We had almost a month notice that something was coming, and it was gonna have snow. And snow, people, believe it or not, snow is a natural disaster in Texas. We don't know how to deal with it. That was more snow than I've seen in my life. Like, and it's something that we never drove in. Our roads aren't ready for it, and we need to get ready for situations like that. We need to have salt. We need to have snow plows, even if it's just something you could attach to the city trucks. We need to have backup plans. If we don't need it, okay, but it's for those times where we could adapt it to new trucks. If we need it, we need it. So we really need to address those issues. And I'm here to work for you, the people of District 4, the people of San Antonio. It's a full-time job, and I'm willing to do it. And I'm working for your vote and not for your money. I do not want your donations. If you have money, donate to a charity you like. Donate to the food bank. Help a neighbor out. Help a family member out. Don't spend that money back if you're willing to put it out there. Just help them out and don't expect it back. Really help people out. That neighbor who might come up short of groceries, buy extra pizza. Like, hey, I buy extra pizza. Do something to help someone else. Help someone in our district. Really, I have Professor in Palo Alto, Armstrong, history. He said San Antonio thrives in good times and bad because we live off of rice and beans on good times and bad. And out of all my professors at Palo Alto and Kingsville, and that one quote stuck with me. And it's true. Like, good times are bad. We live off rice and beans. We could thrive. And coming up, we gotta be ready for whatever's coming up. And I hope I can help you, and I hope I get your vote. And if you need any information, feel free to visit my website, www.guzman4sa.com. You could email me through there. And if you have any questions or any concerns, let me know. I'll be going out knocking on doors and be going out different places, passing out flyers. Please join me in this campaign. I want to improve San Antonio for all of us, and I want to keep money in Texas and in San Antonio. So anything that comes up, if we could do it with people in our area, that's the first thing. We cannot be seeing money outside the area unless we have no other choice. So we need to bring money in. We need to keep money here. We need to bring up the areas, and we need to improve it. And I want to help you. If you need anything, please let me know.
Gotcha. All right. And just real quick before we do sign off, I just want to remind everybody that www.tdi.texas.gov. If you have had an issue with your renter's insurance, your home insurance, things like that, especially during this last freeze, and you're not getting the help you can from the insurance company, try to give them a call. This is an actual government entity, not a company. It's a government entity that helps you navigate the lingo and the whole insurance area, because it's a different type of world, right? So they help you try to navigate that, so that way maybe there's something that you're not asking for or telling them or whatever it is, so that way you can get some help. So make sure you give them a call if you are having issues with them not helping you with your insurance and things like that. And this goes for any insurance, home insurance, auto, medical, whatever it is. Um, they are actually a good entity to help navigate that area. So just want to plug that in, just because there's been a lot of people that have complained about the renter's insurance and stuff like that with the recent freeze. So I know it's not recent. I know it's a month ago, but either way, it's still affecting some people, So
It still is like this the pipe damage, and then the damage from that, and this like HEB's barely getting back to normal, and it was really a hard time for everyone. So
right.
it's just something that we have to come back from.
Yeah, for sure. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you for coming on, Raymond.
Oh no, thank you for having me. And
Yeah, for sure. And I hope you had a good time. Real
course.
quick, what are some of your uh favorite music bands?
Oh man, like that's a tough one. I like a lot, like mainly oh man, like I like 80s rock,
Okay.
kind of like that hairstyle rock, this like rock music is a heavy one, but I'm really into more songs individually than bands.
Okay.
But like mainly 80s, 90s rock, like this giving the people that time period. That's kind of what I listen to. Um, you have a
Like
lot.
Nirvana,
Oh yeah,
Incubus kind of thing, or
Nirvana and this like Blink 182's
okay.
also got a couple of good songs. AC/DC, ZZ Top. This a lot of the very like rock bands.
Right.
Some country. Like I remember seeing Willie Nelson at the rodeo a couple of years ago.
Mm.
That was very very intense. That was very cool. Like it was mainly his kids playing, but he did sing a couple of songs.
Right.
So like that was really cool.
That's awesome.
But San Antonio's like the rock, the metal, the place for heavy metal. Like it was a big city for heavy metal for like the longest time.
Yeah.
And hopefully we could bring stuff like that back. This bands and live music, and people want to start something up. Like we need to set venues up for that again. Like I remember they closed a White Rabbit more than a couple of years ago. So like we can't have that hole to fill in San Antonio.
Well, it's now the Paper Tiger.
Oh, the Paper Tiger.
Yeah, it's Paper Tiger now, but it was also closed obviously during the pandemic. But I think they did something up in Austin that kind of prevented some of these places that to shut down completely, go out of business. So I don't know what they did, but yeah.
And like that, that's one thing we gotta compete with is Austin. We need San Antonio is a tourist city, but Austin's been getting a lot of tourists because of the bands and stuff like that. So we need to step it up and really compete with Austin on that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So, all right. Well, thank you. And all the viewers who are watching, if you would like to contribute to this live stream at all, my Cash App is down below. I just do this for free. I'm just doing this out of my own time. So if you would like to also donate, please do. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Raymond, for joining and just having
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And awesome. You guys have an awesome day. All right.